Hello there. I believe we are live. Good evening. Hello. Hello, everyone.
But can you see me? I'm not coming up on the screen.
No, you're not coming up on the screen, Oliver. Where? Let's see. Okay. Onto the screen. Microphone check. Hello, hello. Hi there. Amy says hi. Hi, Amy. We're just having a bit of
we're in the process of getting it together.
Process.
Oh, I did see the option for you to invite me, but
yes, it's there. The invite has gone out. The invite has gone out, and yep, the invite is out. Is it there on your screen to activate or click on, Oliver?
No, nothing at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. I think we're moving in.
There we go. We're moving
into the
Oliver,
right direction
quite dark,
now.
Quite dark where you are there, Oliver. Let's see. Okay, so we're just getting a few things together.
Yeah, gradually materializing into physical form here.
Here we go. It looks like it's coming on. We will bring light to the darkness. Maybe this is how it's going to be. There's this mystery man, Oliver. Oh no, there we go. Waiting for Oliver to connect, and oh, it's gone again. It's just gone again. Hold on. Here we go. We're back on again. So while we're waiting for this, good evening, everybody. Let's see who's actually here. Some people will watch the recorded, but good evening, Amy, and good evening, Louise. We're just waiting for the second video to clear.
Oh, on my end, can you see me?
No, still can't see you. Not yet. Oh, something's happening. It says waiting for Oliver Cooper to reconnect. Hey, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, I'm here.
We are here.
Finally.
Welcome, Oliver.
Well, good evening to everyone on the call, and good afternoon as well, and even good morning, because I know there's people in different time zones here who is registered, so welcome.
Absolutely, and for anyone that's actually sleeping right now, we will be broadcasting this into your dreams so that you can still benefit. Wonderful. Well, welcome on board, Oliver. I'm very, very, very happy that we've got a first broadcast up and ready, and we're here to share quite a bit of insights into something which is very, very important, a passion of mine, and I'm very, very happy that we're and what a journey it's been since we first connected many years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what was it, about 9 or maybe coming up to 10 years ago now that we first got in touch, which is when you worked with my father when he had bone cancer at the time. my late father. And then after that, it was only through me going to, try to get into a course at college, I ended up coming up with a new idea to write a different type of article. And then I wrote about that moment where you worked with my father and sent it to you. And then you got back in touch, and the months went by of us speaking about a number of different things and different topics. And then you put this idea forward for us to do a live video call. First, it was going to be a video, and then you wanted to jump straight in.
Yeah.
So
it's wonderful. And just to give people an insight, 9 or 10 years ago, I had the blessings to have worked with Oliver's father, who had cancer at the time, and since then I don't think there's been any contact at all. And suddenly I get an email from you at the very moment that my father was diagnosed with cancer. Now that's an amazing synchronicity.
yeah, it was surreal, wasn't it? I mean,
absolutely surreal. In that moment, it was basically within a few days, and so we've kept in touch since then, and here we are. And it's amazing how circumstances in life, no matter how much time has gone by, and when there's synchronicities, I think you've got to act on it and focus on it and put some energy into it and see where it goes. And here we are. And I'd just like to say that I'm very, very, very blessed to have Oliver on our Sacred Soul Conversations, Errol TV. Oliver has written many books, I think 16, all in total, ranging from topics that are all to do with to release their wounds, to do with grief, sadness, inner child work, and many other topics that Oliver can expand on even more. So there's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and there's a lot of there's a lot on the stage here right now with what I do, and with your experience as well, Oliver. So very, very, very blessed to be sharing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of this series, Errol. I know there's going to be a number of other episodes as well, so I feel very grateful to be sharing the video, sharing the screen, as it were, instead of sharing the stage with you. So it's great to come together here and to share our own different perspectives and insights on this area, this important area, the inner child.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, we're looking for series and to be sharing a lot of different insights into this very important area. And we're going to be expanding on different topics, different ways of how going about healing the inner child, and techniques, our own sort of experiences, and what we have gone through ourselves, and how we've helped others. And we're going to be speaking about this topic and answering questions. And we're also going to open up to the audience as well. Open up questions to the audience. So it's not just going to be just me and Oliver speaking. It's going to be us sharing and us also answering questions as well towards the end of the call. So I'd like to sort of perhaps kick it off and delve in and dive in. It's a very important area of the inner child, and why is the inner child so important? I feel that it's an area where we don't normally access in our normal day-to-day life. It's something that the inner child, if there is a wound somewhere, it's suppressed very deep within. And this is something very important for people to go into and access if they are experiencing things on the outside world in their life that are not totally in alignment with where they want to be. You'll be sure to find the root or the core of it somewhere within the inner child work. It's bound to have started somewhere as behavior. So inner child work is important, and I'll let Oliver a little bit on why inner child work is so important.
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking just a number of minutes ago when I was just having a run, I was thinking that the inner child is, in a way, it's like either is part of our unconscious mind or it kind of is our unconscious mind, because so much of what is going on with our inner child, and I see the inner child as being located just above our stomach, which is the area of the third chakra, and that's the yellow color for that. And I just see it as that area then ends up influencing our thoughts, our feelings in our heart, and even in our stomach. So although the term inner child might be new to some people or seen as a bit, maybe hard to get their head around, it is another way of looking at the unconscious mind is how I see it. So although we can be out of touch with this part of ourselves, it can still have a big effect on our life. So it doesn't really matter if we are aware of it or not. So a big thing when it comes down to the inner child is that because the child is obviously going to have different needs to an adult. And so when we've got all these early wounds and the needs of the child, as a child, we want unconditional love. We need so much. It's like we're insatiable. We need more and more and more and more and more. And then as we get to an adult, the kind of needs we have now are going to be different, or they should be. But if we've got all these unmet needs when we were a child and different stages of our childhood, then those needs are then going to come up and affect us as an adult. So we might look back and think, why did I behave, that way? Because that was not really me. And that can be our inner child calling out. It wants to be heard and to be acknowledged. So through having all this inner conflict, it then makes it harder for us to be at peace and to be present.
Absolutely, I totally agree. As a child, we obviously we don't have the capabilities, like we do in an adult, to have a look at things in a very different way. Whereas as a child, it's a very, very basic way of looking at things, and so things are perhaps misunderstood and received or programmed into our sort of biological computer, our mind, our emotions. They become beliefs, become patterns within us, and we can develop fears of moving forward in certain ways, because perhaps, say for example, as a child, we were in a situation where we asked for something, and through no fault of our own, perhaps a response came about from an authority figure, and the response was a negative one, where suddenly the child received that information and retreated and became fearful because of the angry response. So suddenly what happens there is this behavioral pattern of and I get berated, I receive anger, I'm then exposed to an volatile person which I don't have any power over. It makes me feel fearful. This can, if this is a repetitive pattern within the family unit, where the child consistently asks for something and is then receiving a behavior in that way, it's definitely going to create a program of, when I ask, I'm rejected, and there's a volatile, angry person in front of me, which can very easily create a pattern of not willing to ask or not willing to put yourself forward, which could then, in many ways in someone's life, affect someone's ability to want to be promoted at work, affect someone's ability to approach a person that there is an attraction to, for fear of a volatile or angry response or a rejection. That there is a behavior pattern then that stops that person from actually stepping forward without the fear.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? And at that age, because we're egocentric, we haven't got the ability to think, well, perhaps they've had a bad day, perhaps they're just, got issues and taken to heart. And as you say, it can just be one or maybe two, and then that's it. And then we shut down. So instead of reaching out for assistance or asserting ourselves, and it's just keeping back, because that was ultimately what was safe way back. So that then becomes, it doesn't even become something we need to think about, because it's just so much a part of us been programmed in there. So there's no need for us to think, oh, I shouldn't do that. Just don't do it. It's just not even the forward motion.
That's right. The forward motion isn't there. So the importance of inner child work in this circumstances, for this particular example, is that the unknown obstacle in moving forward or getting what you want or asking for what you want can be located through inner child work. It can be located, and on top of that, once located and dealt with in the right way, in the correct way, a change of behavior can happen, where an understanding of when and where that behavior suddenly got sort of implanted, where it got created by the child, by the individual, and suddenly the behavior can change and create a fearlessness, moving forward, ability to speak their truth. And this is the power of the inner child. And I just wanted to add something there. And I feel there's this sort of mythology in sometimes when people are approaching me or asking me about the inner child work, and I've quite often people say, so I need to go into my inner child, and once I heal my inner child, and I'm fine. And it's kind of unusual way of looking at it, because a lot of people's perception is that there's just this one inner child, and once you go in there and you have a dialogue and you give this inner child a hug back into your being, everything's going to be fine. And my understanding, or through the experience of working with this, is that there are multiple inner childs, multiple layers, multiple levels. You could be talking from infancy, childhood. You could be talking from in the womb. You could be talking from conception, preconception. There's all these different aspects of your journey. Your soul, living in this astronaut suit that you're wearing. That there's a long journey going on here. Child, infancy, womb. Many different things are happening. Many different experiences the individual is being exposed to, and how this small child or how this individual responds and then receives information in any timeline is going to be an aspect of the inner child. So it's not just this one one child, go in there, give it a hug, and it's all fine, and move on. Which is, I've come across this quite a lot. A lot of people's like, so if I just do it once, it's all done. And it's almost like there's this unwillingness to actually look at your own life as a journey, rather than this sort of singular focused goal orientated. I'm going to heal this, and it's done, and I can move on again. It's a journey, and the moment you can shift the perspective of the journey versus the singular focused, I'm going to heal this and it's all done, I'm okay, and just realize that every single moment of life is a journey and an opportunity to go within and explore and find another aspect of yourself, another part of who you are, and another situation where there's a realization of who you are and who you are not. Realizations and expansions that can happen in a person, and the moment you start looking at that as an adventure, yes, there may be pain, emotional pain involved in some of these instances, but and at the same time, what is experienced through or on the other side of emotional healing work is nothing short of liberation and freedom. It's a beautiful feeling. Fortune favors the bold, fortune favors the brave.
Yeah, yeah. What I was just thinking is kind of with the inner child, this idea. I think it's the Russian dolls, isn't it? Where you got lots of different. You take the first one off, and there's more, and you go right down. I think that's the Russian dolls, isn't it? The wood
Yep.
things, and it's kind of like with that, you've got many different parts, and what I found is through connecting to these different parts, I can actually, feel different. I can actually notice the difference, an idea. But another thing as well, you said about how there can often be the need for someone to basically dive in there, all done in a day, all done in an hour, just kind of burn through it. And it's obviously the very masculine in terms of very physical action, force, doing, instead of the more feminine, which is to surrender and just to be with it. And I was thinking that when we have the need to, basically say to ourselves, hurry up, come on, it's just like then we can become like our parent was to us, or the guardian or the caregiver. And so we end up then trying to silence ourselves before it was someone else external trying to, silence us. And now it's the other way around. So it's an important point to reflect on.
Absolutely, I totally agree. The experiences that we received from perhaps say parents where there's impatience or shortness, and we're on the receiving end of shortness and impatience. Obviously, as a child, we may not be able to comprehend that this individual in front of us may be overwhelmed, may be stressed out, maybe have 100 million things on their mind, where the next meal's coming from. They're getting laid off from their job, that they keep these things from the child. Or this is what they received when they were a child. They received the same thing: shortness, impatience, perhaps anger. And this is what they've learned. They've learned that this is how you react to that. This is how you behave. So then they just pass that on to their own children. And if the inner child in that instance that's receiving impatience and receiving sort of like a volatile, angry sort of, shortness, then what could happen is the individual that grows, into an adult can carry that same energy into themselves, just as you said. They become impatient with themselves. They become volatile with themselves. They're angry at themselves, and that then goes out into the world. They're angry with others. They're impatient with others. This is how it just keeps spreading. It's hurt people, and it can just carry on.
Yeah.
So the importance here, I feel, is that once you can access certain behavioral patterns or certain things that are happening on the outside world, and then with it, journey back with it, go within, see where it's coming from. And this this work, shadow work, inner child work, getting to the core of things, it really can, and I've seen this, I've experienced it, resolve core level relationship challenges, because ultimately the relationship you have with yourself is going to, in many ways, affect the relationship you're having with your partner, or with family or other people. So by resolving the core level issues that you're having with yourself, it has a knock-on effect on how you're dealing with others or how you're interacting with others. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, if we're in a position where we're criticizing ourselves and we're shouting at ourselves and thinking, and a lack of self-compassion with ourselves, then it's going to be a lot harder for us to then be very understanding and compassionate with others. At least to be authentic with it, we can put on an act and pretend we're like that. But for it to be authentic, it's going to be hard for us to really come to. It's going to be hard for us to very much to show up, because if our inner child is one way of looking at it, if that's like our emotional self, and our emotional self is disconnected from us, then it's going to be hard for us to really open up to connect emotionally with another person, because that part of us, through being shamed or something like you said, then it doesn't have to be specific kind of abuse, it could just be something minor. Through that, and then that part of us closes down our heart, doesn't allow our heart to open and to really blossom. Then it's going to be hard for us to really connect emotionally. We can have connections with others that could be, intellectual, they can be quite shallow, or they might just be physical relationships of the mind and the body, but there's no heart. And then that can lead to the sense of being empty, not very fulfilling relationships, because there's nothing, that part of us doesn't feel safe enough to show up.
Exactly that. And in relationships, when because relationships are the most amazing way for to enhance or boost your spiritual growth, for sure. When we are experiencing anger, or rage or grief or sadness in relationships, this can be due to somewhere within the psyche, somewhere within the subconscious, a perceived loss, a perceived lack. Something is lacking. The child experienced a lack of parents listening or being present, and it became a wound, and it repeated. Perhaps the parent was incapable of being totally present, perhaps because they were not, they did not experience the same from their parents, and therefore here it is showing up again, and in someone's relationship where the partner is acting or doing things in a way, and suddenly this is being perceived as they're not being present, they're not listening, I don't matter, and suddenly this repeats a few times, and then rage can come up, anger, rage, frustration, all sorts of things. The partner's probably thinking, what is going on with this person? They were calm a few minutes ago, and suddenly there's all this anger and rage. But unbeknown to them, just under the layers of the rage and the anger is the deep sense of grief and loss, because something was perceived to be lacking. And that's something that was perceived to be lacking. When you locate it back into the inner child somewhere on the timeline, there's going to be a charge somewhere, and it's going to be very, very easy to access it and see the movie, the story of it in the timeline within that. At this moment, the mother or the father was not being present, didn't care, was just walked away, didn't listen, and this has happened quite a few times, and one or two times there was a lot of charge in there, and it stayed as a wound, and so the child then grows up into the adult looking for a way to resolve this wound, and so they'll continue to attract the behavior, the experiences, so that there's a chance to heal the wound. However, they just keep repeating it.
Yeah, it's the was it repetition compulsion, isn't it, where we look for the same person again and again, because that child part of us is looking for that parent that wasn't there, or the parent that didn't act in a certain way, and then we end up attracting someone who behaved in the same way as the parent, so they can't give us what we need anyway, and then it just recycles the pain again and again and again. And you started off with relationship conflicts and everything else, and the other end of this is then what can happen when a relationship comes to an end. And that can be very painful, because not only, it could be a relationship that's very short, but because it's brought up all the inner child's wounds of loss and being left and neglected, then it can be, a relationship that's very short, it could seem as though you've been with that person for your whole life, for thousands of years, actually, because that's how intense it can be.
Yep.
With all these it's like layers of the trauma.
Absolutely. So that there are things you can do in order to heal the inner child, or the multiple aspects of yourself that is attached to a wound. Um, without healing the inner child or going in to have a dialogue, at least with the child, then the patterns, the behavior patterns, and the life experiences will carry on being the same. What is it? Is it Einstein that said insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result? So without going into, I think it's Einstein. We can Google it. But
yeah, he said that or something similar,
yeah.
but I think that's the gist of it.
He also said, "Don't trust Google." That's another Einstein quote. So the other thing I'd say about the inner child work and the importance of it is that it can shift things. Now, one way I feel that, I mean, there are many ways and many steps, and one way I feel that is important, I think, first and foremost with inner child work, is to create a dialogue with the inner child, to actually reach inside and begin the dialogue. Because what's happening is the individual is actually seeing the dialogue manifest itself in the outside world. It's being shown in so many ways. All the movies are showing up, you know, the same person showing up, the same situation showing up. It's like, you know, the dialogue is there. It's just that some people are not awake to it, or not aware that the dialogue, they can actually see that it's manifested in the outside world. So I feel that the first and foremost is, you know, dialogue with the inner child is very important.
Yeah, and I was thinking actually earlier on, it's kind of one way that I found to connect to mind is through looking at old pictures. So when I was very young, through looking at these early pictures, different stages, and then that actually allowed me to gradually build up a connection, because it caused a stir, you know, it caused a strong reaction within me. And then that was a way of gradually building up, forming that connection.
Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, I've recently seen some pictures of myself, you know, as a child, you know, different ages, and it definitely stirs things up. It's like suddenly it's a glimpse into your past that you just completely forgot, and a lot of thoughts and a lot of memories flood back about that particular time, happy or bad, and you know, it definitely does move things about. Um, I feel another. I
Yeah.
feel,
And what,
yeah.
yeah, just to add in, you know, with this, because, you know, someone can be carrying a lot of pain and trauma in their body, it might be a good idea for them to first, you know, reach out for like a therapist or a healer or something like that. If they need someone to hold the space and they know they've got a lot in there, it might give them that external support, because in the beginning, going there by themselves, it might be a bit overwhelming.
Definitely.
So through having that external support just in the beginning, just like the scaffolding on a house, you know, once the house is strong, then you don't need the scaffolding. So just have that in the beginning. And even if someone doesn't really want to do that straight away, if they find someone just in case, so if they've got any problems, a bit like if you've got the, you know, the services there, doesn't mean you have to use them, but just in case you have any problems, you know, it's there.
Absolutely. It's I completely agree. The the other thing I feel is really important in sort of healing the inner child is allowing your inner child to vocalize its needs. Because what's happening is that the child is inside, the wounded child is inside, and it needs to have its needs vocalized or expressed. It may feel that it's not being heard, and so therefore it's kind of like curled up somewhere in a corner, sobbing or crying, because it's not, you know, it's in some, you know, some sort of semi trauma or traumatic state, you know, for a child. Even the smallest thing from an adult perspective, you know, the smallest thing can be absolutely huge for a child, and then create some form of trauma and behavioral pattern. and sometimes there is actual, severe trauma that's happening for the child, in terms of sort of, emotional, mental, physical, or sexual abuse, and many other things. They might have experienced a death, they might have experienced an accident, a murder, famine, war. There's so many things that children can be exposed to, and it can shape their lives. So as well as creating a dialogue with the inner child, actually going in and talking to the child, it's important to allow the child to be heard, I feel.
Yeah, and coming back to what you're saying, that there, when we do connect, obviously depending on how old we were and what part of ourselves we connect with, we may find that we see ourselves in a certain area of the house or a certain area in the garden or somewhere, and what we can do is to take that part of us just in our mind somewhere where as a child it felt safe. So there might be somewhere in the woods, there might be a playground, there might be a certain room that it felt as though I could relax, it might be near to water, something like that. There, then the child can relax. Because even though we're taking it now, and back then it was didn't feel safe, through taking it somewhere different now, and it can then be easier for that part of us to open and to be able to feel safe enough to express itself. Because a big part of it is feeling safe. If it doesn't feel safe, it's not going to open up. And just like any, we have to gradually build the connection with this part of us, because we can't just, as soon as we start meeting, someone who would later become our friend for the first time, we can't say, right, straight away, let's go on a holiday or let's do something like that. We gradually, just like in any adult to adult relationship, we build up a connection. And with the child, if it is really traumatized, and it can take a lot longer, because we need to earn its trust.
And it's amazing. I just had a thought when you were saying that about, it's so important. Without a feeling of safety and without that sort of trust, the individual is going to be closed off, closed in, and won't be able to go into that place where they can release their sadness and grief and things like this. And it just actually made me think, as you were saying that, how at ease and how trusting must a flower actually be, to just come up out of the ground and just open, nothing holding it back. The flower just opens up and says, "Here I am." And it's pretty amazing how nature can actually, teach us things. Even we might not even get on, while we're sort of observing, but it can really go into our subconscious, where something just comes out of the ground, out of the dirt, and just open, because it just trusts fully that it's supported. It has all the light that it needs, the water that it needs, it has the nutrients that it needs, and there it is in all its glory, shining. And essentially, this is what a child wants to do. A child wants to blossom into adult, which still has, energy, and is still shining, still looking at things through child, but as an adult. And this is something that's really important, because what happens, we get conditioned, and this can go on to create a sense of sort of blinkered view of life, or a structure within the mind and the emotions that just hold a person back from being fully creative. So it's very important, I feel, to, as you said, create a safe space for trust, for the child to be able to release, and that requires being present. This isn't just physical presence, but being totally present, like in the soul, being really present, and unconditional love. And this is a way to allow the inner child to begin integrating back into the adult person, to come away from that perceived lack identity of themselves, and step into the soul level truth of themselves, the authentic truth of themselves.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I was thinking about, it's like when a rose comes through concrete. or something like that, like a poppy. I often see poppies growing near the roundabout, and they just kind of suck out there in the middle of nowhere, and there's no earth around it or anything like that. And as you were saying, it's like being able to expand, feeling safe. If we don't feel safe, we contract,
Yeah.
which is obviously what fear is about. And in order for the child to expand and to open up and to really go with its pain and all the gifts as well that it gives us with the creativity and the enthusiasm and the zest for life, all comes from that part of us. If it doesn't feel safe and it therefore can't trust the world, then it's naturally going to retract. It's going to pull in, and then not only does the inner child become less, as an adult, we become less, our life becomes less, and everything is just so confined and limited.
Absolutely. The constructs, the contraction really steps in, and it shapes the person to such a degree which that they may not actually even be aware of how their life is actually being viewed out of a very sort of tight lens, which is predominantly based upon a wound that happened way back, which has created this lens, this way of looking through their eyes, the way of feeling through their body into the world. And it's how they're showing up in the world, how they're actually, moving forward, their ability to sort of penetrate the world around them. Are they moving forward? Are they receiving? Are they experiencing what it is that they want to be experiencing in life? A lot of this is going to be down to how they perceive themselves, their relationship with themselves, and going back to the core challenges a person will have is the relationship with self. So if there's a wound happening as a child, it can create a huge structure of patterns that the individual then looks out from into the world, and that totally changes everything. It changes how they show up, what they look for, what is showing up in their world again and again and again. People find themselves in the same repetitive pattern, not knowing why. It's because they're sort of living up here in the mind. They're not delving in down and having a connection with themselves. There's, as you said, there's that personal identity of themselves. They are tapping into. It isn't their true self. So there's they're predominantly being run by the personal identity that's been wounded, rather than the true authentic soul level identity, which is who they really are. And this is the journey. This is the journey of life. Is to reconnect to who you truly are.
Yeah, as you say, when we are stuck in our head, then we can't see how the body is influencing our life. If we're connected to how we feel, then it's easier then to see, that's going on there. I feel this, but really it's not that caused me to feel that. It's usually or often how we feel within is causing that. But if we're out of touch with our body, then we're only seeing part of the information. And it's kind of like, if we want to see what we believe and what is going on at a deeper level, we simply need to focus on what is going on out there, so-called out there, and then that will show us what is going on.
Very simple process once you get to understand what the language of the universe is, or what the language of the soul is, because it's all around you. It's basically in your life around you right now. Everything that's showing up and how you're viewing things, and it's all laid out in front of you. All you need to do is look at it in the language of energy, rather than be caught up in the movie, rather than be caught up in the story of it. It has to be looked at or perceived or interacted with in the actual language of energy. This is what's showing up, and in order for this to show up, there are certain belief systems, thought processes, and emotional patterns that formulate together in order for this particular movie to show up. Now, once an understanding, or even a basic level understanding of that, occurs within an individual, they suddenly shift from
Yeah.
being in the forest and not being able to see anywhere, not being able to see, the forest for the trees. They suddenly shift from being inside the forest to actually looking down from the forest. Like, okay, this is what's going on. There's some patterns here. This is showing up. Therefore, if I just translate that into the structure of beliefs and feelings that are holding that together, then I can begin the journey of going in and understanding what's happening with, yeah. And then it's like, well, these beliefs and these feelings, this is how I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling about that. When did that happen? When did that show up? And go on that journey inside, and suddenly it through being present, bit of a meditation down your your sort of doing energy and going into more of a being place through meditation and connection, dialogue with the inner child. Suddenly, it's just going to show you. It's just going to show you. Do you remember when this happened? And this is how you felt. And this actually was a big thing, as a child for you to experience. And here it is. If only we had the majority of the planet looking at things in this way, what a different place it would be to live in. A very different place. If the conversations were, I discovered this about me the other day, rather than, what, so and so left me, and they've done it again, and now I'm gonna have my revenge on that person, and this is gonna happen. It's like, wow, we're still in the doing, still in the dualistic pattern movie, rather than, you know. But I actually located a very deep wound the other day. It happened when I was 5, and it's because of this. And how it was showing up was this, and I just traced it back, and wow, I feel so free right now. Wouldn't it be lovely to have conversations like that with people? Making conversations.
Yeah, it'd be very different, wouldn't it? And I think, as you were saying there about the meditation, because then you get into more of the being energy into the body. And what I found as well is that similar to like a meditation, through being in that state, doing a meditation, that is, I found that to be a great way to connect to my body, to the inner child, to just be with it. Because through the programming that we might have picked up, we can then say, I can't feel this, can't feel that, shouldn't do that, shouldn't feel this way, and everything is just that limits the whole process. So when we can just be with it, not judging, just like a parent to ourselves, so we can just be completely compassionate to ourselves in that way, then there is no limits, there's no blocks from us, because we're just with it completely. Everything is okay, nothing is good or bad, we're just there with it. Then that part of us can say whatever it wants. We're not going to, I shouldn't say that, shouldn't be thinking that. Everything is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this is the nature. This is the nature of going in and doing the work. I feel perhaps that there might, if there is any question from people watching, if there are any questions, we're both very, very happy to answer, and give our perspective, and share our own experience, our own take on anything that's going on.
Send them up, send them in.
Yeah, so please, as we're talking, please, write on the text on the screen, and just press go, and we can look at something particular that is going on for you in your life, or expand a little bit on the inner child work that perhaps you're already involved in or have experienced. Like I said before, I've had a lot of people come to me over the years saying, so if I just go in and heal that inner child, then I'm done and it's all good. And yeah, to a degree, if it's about one particular thing and then there's a wound located in a certain area, then great. That's wonderful. Everyone's just got to understand that there's the timeline is huge, and yes, there's going to be major things happening. I that every individual has one big major thing that sort of dominates their life, and they're not going to be alone in feeling that. It's usually going to be a very similar thing to the rest of the planet. Not feeling loved, not feeling that they belong, feeling rejected, abandoned. There's going to be different flavors to it, but the majority of the planet is feeling a similar thing, the thing of the being disconnected or not connected, not feeling that a person belongs totally. So feel free to write down questions, and we will be happy to answer them. What do you feel, Oliver, the main wounds that go on for inner child work? The main bulk, or sort of like the flavor of what usually comes up.
Yeah, well, I would say through the people I've worked with and the feedback I've got, and the articles are the most popular, I would say the abandonment, being neglected, and the fear of abandonment, and the abandonment itself, because it's not just a fear, there is actually be the trauma of being abandoned. So that is a big thing. And along with that, because obviously if someone has been neglected in that way, then they can feel along with that they're not good enough, that they are worthless. So I would say those are the two main parts of it. And that is something, again, it can be very severe, but it can be worked through, like all these other issues as well. It's something that can be worked through, similar to the inner conflict. Self-sabotage, that's another one. So someone can only get so far, and then they take a step back, either themselves or something it seems though it gets taken away from them. So one minute they feel it's right in their hands, then all of a sudden it's just as if someone's taken it away. It could be a job opportunity or a relationship. And then again, that comes down to that not feeling as though they're not good enough. And then that's also there's that part, that the need there for validation as well. So just finish off quickly, the need for validation. So while part of them wants something, another part of them feels like they don't deserve it. So when it doesn't happen, it's, this is what feels comfortable. This is the level. This is all I'm good enough for. This is all I deserve.
Okay. Totally agree. It's the main thing. I've just got a couple of questions through. One on the screen and another one. The first one came in through Louise, and it's hi Errol, what made you get into the work you do now? Can I ask about your childhood? Beautiful. How many hours do we have? I would say, like everyone, Louise, our journeys, mine has been, I want to see if I can summarize this answer. Quite a complex upbringing. I had parents from two very different backgrounds, very different cultures, very different religions, and the dynamics of how I entered into the family was also unusual as well. Also, complex as well. My father is a Turkish Cypriot, so from a Muslim cultural background, born in the village in Cyprus, and my mother, Scottish from Glasgow, a Christian background. And when I was brought into the planet, my mother and father were living in London, and my father's two children from a previous marriage had come over. So my mother was essentially not looking after them. They had their own difficulties, I guess, for, children coming from another country, not speaking the language. So they were adjusting, and I think it was very hard for them. And me coming into the scene, it was very different. I was coming into what I would say quite a volatile environment, quite volatile, without me expanding too much into it. And I feel that my own journey into getting into this work, really, it started, it really kicked off even more so somewhere around the beginning of 2000, 2001. From there, it kicked off even, really started getting deeper, and I went through a relationship split up. And this particular relationship split up really affected me. It crushed me into bits and pieces. And it was only a very short relationship. However, I sought some help. I got Reiki and healing and all sorts of different things, and I started learning these modalities and techniques. And later on down the line, once I've sort of started learning quite a lot and understanding belief work and everything, I realized that the relationship split up that I had experienced in 2001, 2002, somewhere around there, the ingredients in that relationship split was the exact of how I felt as a child towards mother and towards father. It's like all the ingredients were there at once in how that relationship ended. Match a mirror to the feelings that I felt. It brought up so much, and my journey into this work really catapulted quite quickly from that relationship split onwards, and it made me then understand where these patterns had come from and why I was reacting and acting. My behavior was how it was in that relationship split, to what I had experienced through the dynamics of my relationship with my mother, my relationship with my father, my late father, and the dynamics of having two half siblings marriage, and what my role was, or how I sort of molded into that dynamic. And and it furthered on from there. When I was 10, we emigrated and moved to another country, and there was even more hardship, learning a different language and feeling isolated and so many things. So is a very mixed, very mixed and complex childhood that I had, that got me into this type of work. I hope that sort of answers, in a summary, in a short.
Yeah, I think we got about a minute here, then it's going to cut out. We should have had 2 hours there.
But so feel free to message me, Louise, if you want me to expand on it any more. Happy to answer. And there's another question, and that's come up on the screen. Can you see that, Oliver? The question that's come from.
Yeah.
I'll hand that one over to you.
All right.
It says, hey everyone, thanks very much. I'm dealing with the wound. I'm not loved just the way I am, and seems sorted for just having visualized it and located. But I found that sometimes I don't control when it gets triggered and I react. What advice do you have on this?
Yeah, well, I would say with this, perhaps, as you said, it seems sorted, but because there's no emotional processing being done here, perhaps that's why it's not, being resolved in any way. I mean, if it's just like a mental thing, it's just like a form of hypnotherapy or affirmations. Things are going in, but because nothing is kind of coming out, as they say, the only way, the only way to deal with something is, through it. Then they say, if you want to deal with it, you've got to go through it. So my suggestion would be to try to feel into the pain and see if there's any grief or any sadness there to be resolved. I think because when the emotional side of it is gradually dealt with over time, because there can be many layers, then that gradually solve this issue here.
Yep, I agree.
Because it's easy to visualize anything, but then once we're in the emotional experience and the body's involved, then it comes up, and then it can feel like we're all at sea. So that would be my suggestion.
Totally agree. So before it cuts out, is it going to cut out at an hour, or do we still go on? Oh, it's still going on. Fantastic.
I think it cut out. Yeah, I think it, because I remember yesterday it cut out, didn't it?
So it's still going on. We're on 60 minutes plus now. So if you have any other questions, please do send them over. And we're going to continue doing this series. It's a message from that. Yeah, that's helpful, right? Thank you very much. Yeah,
No, very welcome.
it's a beautiful answer there. Get into the emotional aspect of the wound and just release, and drop in some compassion there as well. So before we go, just really hope that you've all benefited now that you've had something here that you can sort of take with you and help you on your journey as well. I believe very much in the choice to evolve, or the choice to sort of stay as you are, and choosing evolution is the way forward. Choosing to evolve through what life is showing you. And I believe Oliver, as I mentioned right at the beginning, is an author of about 16 books, I believe. They're available online. I'm sure Oliver will add the link in there on the side, just so that you can sort of see, the breadth, the width of his, the depth of his work, and his passion in sharing what he knows, channels it comes through, and prolific writer. So I'm sure Oliver will add in his link there, so you can sort of see that there are some huge insights there into going in and helping yourself. So without further ado, we should conclude, I believe. By the way, there's also, I think there's a button or a link there if you would like to have a consultation call with myself, then just click on that. Very happy to go through whatever's happening for you right now. For a free call. Very happy to be of service. Would you like to add anything, Oliver?
Well, just quickly, thank you for your kind words there, Errol, with that bit of promotion there for me. And I think we answered a lot of questions. Good description of the two important stages, the why and the how, which are two important parts. So I think I would say this has been, certainly would have been the kind of call that I would have liked to have listened to before I knew anything about the inner child, and before I'd done a number of years of work on my inner child myself. So I think this has been a good introduction for people, and I think people are going to get a lot out of this.
Perfect. And I just got another question, Louise, asking Oliver, will you be writing further books?
Where are you getting these from?
Oliver, will you be writing further books on the inner child?
Well, I think I've just been putting an audio book together, and I'm thinking about doing like a short course, like an online course, or maybe just like a CD course on this stages of getting into the inner child. So it's a lot more easier then for people to access it and not to have to rely too much on external support, so they can get in there and dig in to their own different parts of themselves and work through it. So that is the plan.
Perfect. And is that going to be on audio and sort of PDF, so audio and readable?
I'm not sure because for so long I've been doing books, and I'm just looking at different formats now to get it out there. So I mean, it could be like a book, and then I could turn that book into like an audio, because I know that some people like to read things and other people like to hear things, as well as to do both. So
absolutely. Perfect. Well, Oliver will put his link to his website and his books on the there on the screen. As I said, there's a button there if you wish to have a call with me, just to get an understanding of your current situations and what's going on for you. And yeah, it's been a great first Sacred Soul conversation in regards to the inner child. I think it's been amazing, and let's we look forward to having another one next week where we dive in even deeper.
Yeah.
And
Let's get down to business.
Yeah, we'll start getting to business. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends and invite people that you feel are ready, not necessarily need, but are ready to hear or listen or to actually go forward into sort of healing and evolving as well. So please share. So until the next time, I want to say a beautiful namaste and thank you very much for Oliver and all your insights, your presence, and for being here and sharing the screen. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much as well, Errol. Appreciate your time here and for bringing me on board with this series, this project. And thank you for everyone for joining us, and whoever's watching this after, hope you've got something valuable or a number of things valuable from this video.
Wonderful. So until
the next time, I'm going to have to invest in a lamp over here because it's getting very dark. Dematerializing now.
Going into the darkness. Off he goes. Wonderful. We'll see you all next week for our next episode. Until then, namaste. Have a beautiful day, evening ahead. Goodbye.
Goodbye.